everybody! I hope you are enjoying the conference. We will now talk about how to write your own Tiptap AI extension to bring AI to your website. I'm Vanessa. I work as a senior front-end engineer at GitLab. I previously worked as the head of frontend at Savvy, and I am co-hosting a couple of podcasts, for example, the German-speaking web development podcast Working Draft. And in the past, I hosted the front-end testing podcast Expect Exception, which is in English. And unfortunately, yet again in German, a podcast about drinking wine and sometimes whiskey called Ausbaufähig. Maybe a good chance to actually work on your German. You can find me on social media as Vansel or Vanessa Otto, depends a bit on LinkedIn or Mastodon or X or whatever else we have as social media platforms. But now, without further ado, let's get into the talk. So I did create a code base specifically now for this conference, which includes a backend and a front end. Because I always had the trouble explaining or showing examples about AI extensions in front-end code only, and stumbled over my words explaining, hey, don't save any API keys on the front-end code base for example, OpenAI authorization keys. And obviously don't add them into your Git repository, but especially not in your front-end code base. So this example is now actually having a server and a front end. So the front end talks to the backend and just forwards the user inputs, and then the backend is actually making the request to OpenAI. OpenAI answers, and the answer comes from the backend or through the backend to the frontend again. And today we will implement the AI extension using the rich text editor Tiptap. But because my time is limited, we will actually not discuss all of the basics of Tiptap, JavaScript, TypeScript, or any framework for backend or frontend we might want to use. But you can check out my website, Vansel.io, because I did do some similar talks, and I still plan to do a whole bunch of blog articles about the series, which I would link on my personal website for more details around this ecosystem. So the demo project is throwing an error, so let's fix it right away. I was just fixing it. I was just changing one thing 1 minute before the presentation. So here we go again. That was a comma too much, actually. Sorry for that. But now you already could see a bit of code. So Tiptap AI extension. This is a kind of like Notion-like field editor where I can type my headline. So here the headline was already preset when I come on the page. I will just refresh the page so we can see the headline is preset to Tiptap AI extension, and then I can start typing here. Tiptap is a headless editor, which means I have all of the functionality in my control and also all of the styles. For example, if I select this text now, all of these CSS I have implemented. If you fork the project I have linked earlier, then you have access to all of that. And here we see I have bold, italics, right through text, or also an AI action to summarize the text. There is another menu, which I have here if I follow along with the placeholder. So the placeholder is telling me type / for commands. And if I type /, then I have some options here. For example, again, a heading, or I have the action Ask AI. So I'm clicking on that. And then I am focused here on an input field where I can see Ask Anything. So I say, sure, if I can ask anything, then please explain CSS to me. And now we have already our answer from OpenAI. If you're wondering, that was quick? Yes, that was. I have actually cached the responses because I did this a couple of times and I wanted to not submit the same request again and again just for the money in the end, but also so that it's a bit quicker here in the demo. The requests are already cached. So, but focusing back, when you can see we have actually not only an answer back, but it's also kind of styled, like no big colors or anything, but we have 2 paragraphs and we have some strong text. And then we have some options like inserting it, some adjustments, or we can discard what we had again. And this is not coming from Tiptap itself. Tiptap is the tool I could use to build this extension. The buttons here were implemented by myself using some Tailwind UI and Tailwind CSS. But you could style this however you need it for your case. Let's take a quick look at the options. So in the options, I prepared prompts for continue writing, enrich the text, summarize the text, change the tone, or translate it. For example, I can say continue writing. Continue writing is a bit of an interesting edge case because continue writing means persist whatever you already have, but just add something more to it. Don't throw away what you already have. So this is important if you will later implement it to remember what will you want to keep and what do you want to replace completely. So now I say continue writing and we have a new paragraph here. I can now also say I want to translate it to German, and now we have the full text in German. Interestingly, we lost the styles though, which is something we will discuss at the end of the talk, why actually this happened. Okay, because maybe you are not that fluent in German, we can revert the changes, too much, revert the changes, and then we can finally insert it and keep on typing again. And this is how you could add OpenAI to your rich text editor on your website. And let's check out how. Not only how, but also why. So in the example I just showed you, I use the AI extension for content creation. But you could use it for summaries, translations, change the tone of text, rewrite whole articles. If you want to have something more in a different style, like not steal something from somebody else and rewrite it, but rather in like you want to create outcomes for different audiences. So you are writing an article for this kind of audience and for that kind of audience, and you want to use a different linguistic style or similar. Very interesting for me is also detecting inappropriate content, which means not only maybe you can use the AI to let the user itself use OpenAI or any kind of other AI service, but you could also, while the users are using the rich text editor, detect if they are actually writing inappropriate content and do something about it. You can create social media posts about your articles and just many more use cases. So let's look at the code. This is JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript, so it doesn't rely on any library but Tiptap. And we will go through it line by line now. We are getting the element, usually an empty div element on the website, to make this the editor element. As extensions, right now I am installing the starter kit, which is, sorry that this is not highlighted, but here in line 2, we can see I'm importing the starter kit from Tiptap, which is including the document, the paragraphs, the headings, undo, redo actions, etc. We can preset the content. So here I'm setting the H1 Tiptap AI extension we saw also on this website here on top. And I have a function on update. And every time I type something or do something in this editor, this function will be called. So maybe you also want to add a debouncer here if you want to autosave the changes to the backend. But you can actually get the HTML from the editor, HTML and JSON, and do something with it and then save it to your backend. There can be some interesting use cases where you want to do something with the HTML that you get at it, which I would again say check out my website because there are more details about the use cases why you might actually want to do this. But now we want to create the Tiptap extensions. So the first party extension, we want to use more than just the starter kit. And for example, here I'm importing the starter kit and also now the placeholder. And I can configure the extension. So actually all of the extensions you can always call .configure on and add some parameters to it. I could have done that to the starter kit as well, but I didn't want to configure anything, so that was just not necessary. But here for the placeholder, I set a CSS class, so I can have a specific color on the placeholder. It is a bit more gray than the usual dark text here. And I can say I want to write type / for commands as a placeholder. And with that, we can also create now or install our own custom extension. So I am importing 3 different files, which are not coming from Tiptap anymore, but from our own code base, which are custom commands, custom AI, and suggestions. The custom commands and the suggestions are these menu that we are seeing here. So this thing here, when I type / and now I see this list here, these are the custom commands and the suggestions. And on top of here, you can see especially Ask AI, which is also an extension for the AI extension. So 2 extensions we are building for this menu and for the AI itself. The custom commands I configure again with the suggestions, and the custom AI extension does not need any kind of parameter. You don't have to call it custom. I just did it here in the sake for the demo or in the code base. You could call it whatever you want, unicorn, AI, whatever. Let's have a quick look at the suggestions. The suggestions are an array of elements which include the title, for example, the heading 1, and then a command. And you can see that the command gets the editor and the range. Both are coming from the core of Tiptap. These are the types. If you're not familiar here with this kind of syntax, we are importing the type, which is a specific keyword that I'm using to say I actually really only import the types of Tiptap core, which means in the build JavaScript, this will not actually import anything from Tiptap core, which is only necessary here for development mode. So I have the types and I can have these very nice TypeScript autocompletion. So I can then say I want to editor, and then I get already like the autocompletions. So I know I can type .chain, .delete range, .set node heading to 1 and run. Looks a bit complicated the first time. I was looking at what is happening here is I am accessing the editor element and I want to chain multiple commands. And the commands are actually only 2. I want to delete the range. Delete the range means I just typed the / right to open this menu. Let's check it out again. I am typing the / and then I want to turn it into a headline 1. And I have another headline 1, but the / is gone. / is gone. So this is what's happening here when I'm deleting the range. And then I'm setting the node to a heading of level 1. And the last one here means I want to execute and run the chain of commands now. This is very Tiptap specific, no other custom AI stuff yet, which we have now here on this slide. And there's actually not much different on these 2 slides, other than the title is now Ask AI, and we have the function set AI chat completion, which is not coming from Tiptap. So where does it actually come from? It comes from this file. In this file, we are creating our extension. In the beginning, we have again something TypeScript specific. We are declaring a module for a Tiptap core interface, a bit of complicated words, or maybe not complicated, maybe a bit unfamiliar, because this is also something I don't write on a daily basis. But what are we doing here? We can check it out actually in the code base, what is happening if I don't have it. So let me pull the VS Code doesn't want to go up. No, it does not want to. Probably because I'm in full mode. You know what? It's simpler if I just explain it then before I rearrange something with the screens now. If I would delete this piece of code, this would simply mean that I cannot write this one here anymore. So as I said before, and we are having here TypeScript, so we know what we are doing. And editor.change, .delete range, and .run, this type, which are Tiptap specific commands, it knows what it's doing here. But set AI completion is something, what is it? So TypeScript itself would throw an error and say, I don't know what it is. This has to be wrong. So here I'm saying, no, I know what I'm doing. I want to tell you that set AI completion is actually now a function that exists on this AI extension, and it comes with a specific, it is a function and it has a return type. That's everything, all the magic which is happening in here. The second part is then the AI extension itself. What we are doing is we are creating a new node and we are giving it a name. It's called AI, which actually means if you would look at the HTML that the editor is outputting, that it is really called like something like paragraph and anchor, and that is just like these bigger, smaller signs AI. It is a block element because we want to have it in a new line. Parse HTML is important if you want to load the HTML again, but in our case, the most important part I want to focus on is actually add commands and add node view. So in add commands, we are now defining the function for set AI chat completion, and we are inserting the content. This code is more or less copy-pasted from the Tiptap documentation. There is no magic which I introduced. The add node view is now here a function. I won't go through it line by line right now, but what is happening is that I'm creating a container with a form with an input field so the user can type in the input field. But if you're now thinking, wow, is this the way that I have to create the HTML in my extension or in the TypeScript file and the JavaScript file, this could get complicated, then I would agree, this might get complicated. It would be a funny challenge though. However, you can use the React component node view renderer, where you're just importing a component and you use the React node view renderer, which is coming from Tiptap React library, and then you can just call that, and you can use a very normal React component. The same for Vue, the same for other libraries. I jumped over one slide just for the sake of the time, but we want to take a quick look we want to take a look at the client JavaScript. So whenever the user submits the form with the input field, we are making a fetch request to our own backend for an API, and we are basically sending the prompt as a PuTTY as this post request, and then we are handling the response. On the server side, we are importing OpenAI from OpenAI, and we are using our OpenAI API key, which is coming from an env variable. The request to OpenAI looks like this. You can check out the OpenAI documentation, which is also suggesting to do exactly like this. We are sending an element, an object, which is telling the model. Here I'm using GPT 3.5 Turbo. I'm having a system message. In this example, I told it to be, you will provide it with sentences in any language, and your task is to answer in the same language. So this was my language thingy, language body. And now we're having the body prompt here. And the response is actually in the response choices, first array, message, content. Yet again, for more details, please check out further documentation on it. Because now in the last minute, I want to discuss quickly token limits and prompt engineering. So the token limits. On GPT-4, we have a limit of 8,000 tokens. On GPT 3.5 Turbo, we have a limit of 4,000 tokens. But what does this actually mean? We have a link here to the OpenAI tokenizer. And the very, very, very simple answer is that one token in English language is something between 2 and 8 characters. I don't have more time to discuss it in more deeper, but tokens are somehow words or parts of words. Let's say it like this. But here you can say in this text, which I copied here above in this text box, I already used 141 tokens. So if I want to translate a lot of text, then I could say, okay, if I have 4K tokens for GPT 3.5, then I can, oh, that was a bit too much, then I can translate this much text, right? Unfortunately, this is not the case because the token limit includes the prompt and the response. So if your prompt includes this whole text that you want to translate, it will, and the response, you kind of have like only 2K tokens plus 2K tokens, which you can then actually use. The prompt engineering. In your prompts, be as precise as possible and explain all steps after each other. I don't even know if you should call it prompt engineering. For me, it's just try out until it works good enough. As an example for the translations I added, I did not just have the prompt translate this text into this. Instead, my prompt was detect the language of the text. Why? Because the text could be in Spanish. My prompt here is in English, but I maybe want to translate it to German, and this can get confusing for the model. So I'm telling it, detect the language of the text, translate the text into the target language, keep punctuation, linguistic style, and tone, keep lists and other style elements. So before, in the beginning, we saw, as I translated the English text into German, the bold text was gone because I forgot to tell it to not only translate the text, but also to keep bold text as bold text, so it throw away my bold text. Only respond with the translated text. Don't add other words and symbols. You might have seen it before. You say, hey, translate this text, and OpenAI or ChatGPT answered with, okay, here's the translated text. But this is not what we want to have. We don't want to have this prefix. And I actually want to tell it write the response in HTML format, and then it will do that. Thank you for your time. I'm here for your questions, but you also can feel free to chat with me later online. Thank you so much and have a nice conference.
Hey, Vanessa, how's it going?
Hi, going well, going good.
Good, excellent. Nice to see you. And excellent talk, by the way.
Thank you.
So we do have a few questions for you. Number one is, are there any other useful features of Tiptap that you just really enjoy?
I'm trying to decide. So first of all, I did try once to build my own rich text editor because I thought it can't be that hard. It is hard. So the command, for me, it's actually the tiny things that I like the history that you have out of the box. And really the advantage of that you can style everything the way you want and that you can add JavaScript and the functions and extensions the way you want. If it's about dragging and dropping images, resizing them, centering them, so sky's the limit, or your coding styles are your limit. If I would think about it, what a Tiptap salesperson would say would probably be rather about their pro accounts. And what I heard of is, I mean, you have to be a busy manager or so that you can think this is really helpful. But with one pro, so I think you can have a collaboration already if you're not in a pro account. But there is the feature, if you're collaborating on a text, and you can write comments, and then you can write these comments in offline mode, and they have a queue or something. I don't know how it technically works, but they have a queue or something so that it gets sent to the cloud whenever you have internet connection again. So with the thing of if you are so busy and in an airport and you have to write something, it will just get uploaded.
Super handy. I wasn't aware of that feature. All right. So can you explain just a little bit more? What does it mean by being headless? Why is Tiptap headless?
Yes. So when I think of other editors, for example, the Tricks editor, when you install the Tricks editor, you will have the JavaScript npm package, and you will use this editor, but it comes with the CSS already inside. So it is pre-styled and you have a toolbar. Then you have possibilities, for example, to either reach down custom CSS custom properties, or you might be able to write your own CSS file and you pass it as a property, or you pass it as a URL, and then you get the CSS inside. Or maybe a bit more old school, you have to override the CSS classes again and hope the original CSS classes stay the same forever. But then you think, okay, but I could still style it the way I want it. It comes with a trade-off. For example, in the Tricks editor, they were using icons for bold, italic, and I could not change the icons. I could change CSS classes, but I cannot do anything about the HTML structure. Theoretically, I don't want to hack around.
Sure.
So what it means that it's headless, that it comes. If you have a div container, it will render the HTML inside, but it comes completely without CSS. So everything that you saw was really styled by myself. So even the tooltip thingy with the shadows, or that I could have just written bold, italic instead of using icons.
The actual controls for the editor, you had to style all those things yourself.
Yeah, this floating menu and this bubbly menu, that was just custom CSS. You could have done whatever you want. And if you actually check out the Tiptap documentation, they try to really focus on the documentation of the feature and not to actually style it. So you will see in their documentation, they are just really like old school buttons, bold, italic, where you just click on it. It just doesn't look nice, but it shouldn't look nice in the second. So it might also be the wrong thing for you if you just want to have it pre-styled and don't care about it. I know there are plans that they have something like a tailwind thingy, so you can just use Tiptap, don't care about CSS, and just throw pre-written CSS classes on it, and then you're done as well.
That sounds really nice. I'll have to try out. Have they released the tailwind thing already?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't checked. I don't need it.
Sounds interesting. Okay. All right. So last question here. Do you have any, I know you kind of started talking about this at the end, but do you have any strategies for handling the token limit on GPT-4?
I do. I'm not sure if they are smart. I'm not sure if other people have smarter ones, but I did actually just count the request that I sent, how many tokens or how many characters there will be inside, and then I just calculated. That this was a bit of a primitive approach, I would say. So I made sure that I don't send more than 500 characters or so in the request. But you also have settings with OpenAI to say that you want to limit the tokens that you want to get as response. And then you have to calculate around. And
because it counts both together, right? So that's why the limiting the response is helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
And it makes also sure that you're not running out of your quota or whatever that you have. So you can really say, I don't want to have an answer longer than this. Otherwise, it would get too expensive or it would run out of tokens. So you can say that. And then you can make multiple requests in a row. For example, for translating, you usually don't need too much context. Like in a chat system, you would need to send everything from above again. But if it's just about translating, you can send it even in parallel requests 5 times, and you get the 5 responses back, and then you just, in your code, connect them again.
Awesome. Super helpful and makes a lot of sense. So one last comment here, not really a question, but somebody says thank you for the presentation. And please, if you could share your link to your slides and stuff, that would be great.
Yes, I will do. Where can I do this?
Um,
On
you
all social media platforms, just on all of them. And maybe,
that would be
Daniel, I can
great.
send it to you. Maybe you send emails out afterwards, and then you can also insert a
Absolutely, and
link
I can
to it.
put it in the chat for
Yes,
the conference that we're having right
yes,
now.
because I
But
don't think I have it today. Sorry, I was also a bit in a vacation mode, and I'm sorry. I always think I will do this before, and I never do. I always lie to myself.
nice, nice. Okay, well, no, that's great. We'll look out for it on your social media, which is what, Vanessa? What
On
is your
X,
handle?
it's Vansel, which is VANNSL, and on Mastodon it's Vanessa Otto.
Excellent. All right, thank you so very much, Vanessa. Really enjoyed having you on.
Thank you.
Have a good
Have
day.
fun.